When the Warzone Season 1 Reloaded update dropped for MW3 and Warzone 3, Raven Software went to Twitter and shared a picture of the lighthouse tower from Rebirth Island with a specialist briefcase icon on it. And that got me thinking about features that used to be in Warzone 1 that have kind of just vanished like Houdini. And even when Rebirth Island comes back, some people are saying that it won't be the same. While I kind of disagree with that, I do want to talk about features that should come back to Rebirth Island. Maybe should come back even tomorrow if possible. That could really change Warzone for the better. And by the way, number 15 is one that you're gonna want to stick around for, so make sure you don't miss it. And as always, shout out to the Noti Gang, the subscribers, and of course, people that are in the Discord. Let's get into it. Now, if you played Warzone back during the pandemic, you probably remember emotes. Warzone 1 had so many cool emotes that you could use to either troll your enemies, troll your friends, or just make things fun and challenging. One of the most crazy emotes in Warzone 1 was the scorpion shot. What it would look like is your operator would legitimately put a scorpion in some sort of shot glass and would basically chug it as you can run around and try to use your weapon and move using it. Now, these emotes would just make things super fun when you had killed somebody in the kill cam and wanted to be toxic. And it would be even more fun for simply running around and having a good time. I think it added a uniqueness factor that Warzone just doesn't have right now. And I feel like emotes should 100% make a return to Warzone 3. And all you had to do to activate it in Warzone 1 was simply going up on your D-pad and choosing a selection of emotes. And there were so many in the game. I hope some of them come back in Warzone 3. The second feature that should come back to Rebirth Island in 2024 when it comes back to Warzone 3 is sprays. Now, sprays, pretty similar to Warzone 1's emotes, could be activated by going up on the D-pad and choosing a plethora of options. One of my favorite viral clips from Warzone 1 was a clip of a guy going into the gulag and actually spraying a picture of an operator and getting somebody to shoot it and winning his gulag. Now, you weren't really living during the pandemic if you didn't at least try that once. And I feel like that is one of many examples why sprays were unique and cool. With so many options for sprays and packs and things that you could acquire in the game through the battle pass, you could have so many cool emotes and sprays that it just added a personality and flair that I feel like is missing from Warzone 3 right now. Now, third is kind of something from Verdansk, but also was on Rebirth Island, and that's specialists. Now, in the prime of Warzone 1, you could find specialists on the ground. Sometimes you could even buy it in the buy station in Rebirth Island at one point. And there was the huge Nagatomi Tower in Verdansk that honestly made the game feel very fresh, new, and exciting. Essentially, you had to land back in Nagatomi Tower, hit the vault, and then enter the correct code and keys to get specialists and a ton of loot at the beginning of the game. Now, every cracked and advanced player was landing at downtown at this time in Warzone Verdansk. That way they could get in there and get their loadout right off the rip with specialists. Specialist gives you every perk in the game, so it's kind of busted, but let's be real. Warzone is at its best when there's busted things to use. And so if we had some sort of specialist mode or specialist on Rebirth Island, I feel like it would feel fresh and new, and that's exactly what Raven Software tweeted about in the Season 1 Reloaded update, which we talked about earlier in this video. I think they're teasing something new to bring it back, so this one you'll probably be able to experience soon. But number 4, I don't know if you will. Number 4 on my list is Rebirth Supreme, and number 5 is actually Rebirth Extreme. Now, if you didn't know, Rebirth Supreme basically allowed for 1, better ground loot off the rip, easier money to find, different buy station costs, slightly different amount of people in the mode, and it also allowed for the Rebirth Disabled to stay alive a little longer for higher kill games. Now, when you combine all of those things, you have some very slight changes that make for a way better Rebirth Island mode. If you look at Rebirth Extreme, which had way more players in Rebirth, it led to levels of insanity and interestingness that we didn't really have in Rebirth Island. Not to mention the Rebirth Island April Fool's mode, which basically allowed you to have specialists and drop your loadout right away. Now, if these modes were to come back, I personally feel like it would be a beautiful thing, and that's why all these modes should come back to Warzone 3 and Rebirth Island in 2024. Number 6 on my list is Iron Trials and the Resurgence Gulag. Now, a lot of people don't know the secret that Rebirth Island actually has a gulag. Now, I take a lot of flack in my video when I say that I'm sending people to the gulag, but I actually could have done this in Iron Trials and when Rebirth Island had their gulag active. Rebirth Island gulag is not the lightest thing. It's not got a lot of lighting. It's very dark and hard to see in it, but it's got some cool jump spots, and honestly was better than a lot of the gulags that we've had in Warzone throughout the life cycle of the game. I feel like it should come back with Iron Trials, which was a mode that had more HP, was more like a battle royale, and was a lot more difficult with the ground loot and cost of buying things. And it kind of felt like that was a better version of ranked for Warzone, and would love to see it come back at some point for Fortune's Keep and Rebirth Island, especially in 2024. Now, number 7 on my list probably caused a lot of people a lot of anger, and that's the PDS from Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep. Towards the end of Warzone 1's life cycle, there was an item, a field upgrade, that allowed you to survive in the gas. It was called the PDS, and it was useful for late game rotations, staying alive, but it did have a huge downside. And that was that anytime you threw the PDS on the minimap, it would basically show your location. So if you were gonna use it, it was only useful if you had a multi-layer building or a way to stay as far off the minimap as possible, so you could rotate way outside of the zone, throw on the PDS, heal up, throw down a munitions box, and then make your push through the gas. Now, this added a lot of variety in the end game, and I felt like it was pretty useful. I would love to see it come back, but with the new inventory system, it would be kind of broken for gas plays. Although, I'm one to love broken gas plays. Would love to know what you guys think about that, but I think we should bring back the PDS. The other thing that I think, if you haven't yet, is consider dropping a like on the video, because it does help it in the YouTube algorithm and helps me grow the channel if you're enjoying the content that is. And let's get to number 8. Number 8 has to do with vehicle driving. Now, as we know, since Warzone 2 came out, vehicles, including helicopters, are just less easy to drive and less fluid. Warzone 1 kind of felt like you were playing Mario Kart when you were driving everything, where Warzone 2 and 3, maybe Mario on the Nintendo 64, because it's not that easy to drive. So I feel like Warzone should go back to its old system of vehicle driving, make it a lot more fluid and easy to control the vehicles, which ultimately means better transportation and more fun. Number 9 is honestly short and sweet, and it's that the balloons on Warzone 1 need to come back. If you remember when portable balloons and redeploys were added to Warzone 1, which is kind of like an Apex, Fortnite type feature that was ported over for Warzone, it felt like it fit really well in Warzone 1 and added a lot of fast pace, but you could also shoot out of the air on these in Warzone 1. The amount of times that I would go up in a balloon, start shooting out of the air to knock a player, and then land led to even faster pace, more exciting, and honestly a skill gap that good players could do, but let's just call it what it is, worse players had to learn. So I think this should come back to Warzone 3, and if not, maybe having a limit where you have to pull your shoot and then cancel it again to shoot, unlike Warzone 1 where you could do it right away, to make it a little more balanced. Number 10 is also short and sweet, and that's the ability to cancel your tactical sprint a little more fluidly. We are supposed to be getting a stamina bar in Season 2 or Season 2 Reloaded from my understanding, as well as bunny hopping back, but I think that we should have the ability to cancel our tactical sprint a little more fluidly, maybe allowing you to slide cancel once or twice before you have to wait to slide cancel again with your tactical sprint up. Because in Warzone 1, anytime you slide cancel, you can immediately raise your gun and then tactical sprint again. You obviously can't do that in Warzone 3. And I think maybe if they just gave you a little more opportunity to cancel it, it would add a little more fluidity without making slide canceling as overpowered as it was in Warzone 1. Number 11 is that we should have bunkers and other cool Easter eggs back in Warzone. Verdansk had things like the bunkers that you could go to and open for cool codes, and eventually leading to the nuking of Verdansk event. Rebirth Island had the bunker that was next to prison in Grandma's house area, and it just added some cool appeal to the game that if people wanted to go and try to complete these Easter eggs, they could do so, and almost kind of feel like they had a single player element in Warzone, and there was almost always an Easter egg going on, so I would love for these to come back in Warzone 3. Number 12 is that there should be map changes and POI reversions, just like there was in Rebirth Island. You remember when Rebirth Island first dropped, there used to be Control Center on the other side of prison, in between living quarters and making your way towards decon and prison. And that was changed to Control Center from construction. And I felt like it just was cool to have different changes. And Control Center ended up being one of the best drop sites in Rebirth Island. There was also other changes like the prison courtyard, which went from really having no cover to having all sorts of boxes and things like that that you could use for cover. And I would love to see some changes to Rebirth Island a little bit into the game once we get the map back, so people can play it how it was and then get something fresh and new. Same thing for Fortune's Keep, for that matter. 13 is the return of lootable individual perks. Right now in Warzone, if you get perks off the ground, which it is useful that you can get your whole perks after you die, you can't get those individual perks back. You can only get the perk packages. I feel like we should go back to the system of being able to find individual perks on the ground, if it's at all possible, because Warzone 2 kind of changed the way it worked by making everything in perk packages itself. But it would be cool that if after you looted a player or looted a box, you could find a random perk that could get you closer to specialist, and kind of think like this one might actually be coming back based on the tweets we've seen from Raven Software. But we'll have to see. Number 14 is just the return of balloons versus the PDS system, or whatever you call it, that we have in Warzone right now, where when you go to take the mini balloon that basically is a drone, the redeploy drone that lifts you up, it's slow, it's not as cool, and it feels like Warzone 2. Oh, sorry. I think I just sneezed because you're not subscribed yet. I'm allergic to that. Hopefully you're not allergic to that sub button, though. And hopefully Warzone is not allergic to making changes and bringing back the redeploy balloon. That honestly would make Warzone feel a lot faster and also allow for your whole team to rotate. Now if you use the redeploy drone, your whole team can't use it, kind of defeating the purpose. And lastly, number 15, the change everybody is waiting for. The Car 98 needs to return. I feel like this doesn't need much of an explanation. The Car 98 was fast, easy to use, fluid, felt so satisfying, almost like you're watching an ASMR pimple popping video while you're popping domes with the Car 98. And it should definitely come back, even though it was broken for almost all of Warzone. It was the longest serving meta. I would love to see it back in Warzone 3. So let me know down in the comments, what are you looking forward to with Rebirth Island and Fortunes keep coming back? What updates do you think should come back to the game? And as always, we'll see you guys tomorrow for another long form video and maybe a stream. And stay humble, stay hungry. Have a good one.